Welcome to Smalltalk Daily for Tuesday, January 28, 2009. This morning I'd like to go through a little bit about the user interface in ObjectStudio. We're going to go back to the same example I was on yesterday, the button example, but instead of looking at it in the GUI builder and just doing kind of a broad overview, we're going to go look at the code and see how that all fits together. So let's go and load the sample browser first. And here's that. Now once that's there, we're going to open that by double-clicking on it. And now we'll scroll down here to Buttons, Buttons and Actions, this example, and hit Load. Now that'll bring that in. And here's our button example, just like yesterday. Works fine. Hit the 3 add. I should get 6. And that works. Now what I want to do is browse it. And I want to do this as a way of showing you a couple of things about this, but I also want to open a workspace. So let's do a workspace here. Put that aside for the moment. Let's go in and look at the code. The way this thing is set up, every ObjectStudio application, let's go to the class side, every ObjectStudio application is initialized with an instance name. So this one has the name button example. And then that code goes ahead and sets up a global instance of the controller. And that's why, if I do something like this, go over to the instance side and I look at the way this thing is created. Here's how all the form items are created. And then in initialized bindings, here's how they're wired together. Here's how the multiply button gets bound to this and the add button gets bound to this. Let's say I do this, rebind that to my add, and then I come in here and I do my add. Don't make any real changes, just rebind that. If I were doing this in VisualWorks or another Smalltalk or another GUI framework, I might think that's enough. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to remove the doAdd method. And now, I'm going to double click this, put in a 2, put in a 4, hit add. And now you see it says, hey, I'm trying to send this doAdd and it doesn't work. And you're thinking, well, I changed the binding, why doesn't it work? Well, the reason it doesn't work is because of that global instance thing. And what I need to do to reset that is I need to come down here and try button, example, controller, and I need to send initialize again to get that to reset. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do it a Smalltalk execute, assuming I could actually spell it and highlight it all. So let's highlight all of this. Actually, I don't think you have to. In ObjectStudio, you can just do that line. Now, if we do this, 3, 4, add, and it's rebound. So that's kind of what happens, is that initialize bindings get sent once unless you rerun the initialize. So you can make changes here yourself. And in fact, once you make those changes and you reinitialize, they'll be reflected here in the GUI builder. Now, if I go ahead and do an edit, you'll find that if I double click on add and I look at the methods, you see that it's now linked to do my add. So it all works. You can move back and forth between code and the designer. You just have to be cognizant of the fact that there's one of these controllers around in memory, and you have to reinitialize the class in order to get it to rehook. Now, one other thing, that create instance thing, if I wanted to run this code, if I wanted to open this from code instead of opening it the way I have been double clicking, let's say I wanted to open it this way. So let's do create instance named name pound button example and send open to that. So I can do something like this. Now if I didn't have that space there, I could actually just run that with this name and open. But here let's do a Smalltalk execute. And there it is. So if I want to run this from code, this is kind of the way I do it. If I want to run it just in development, I can just double click on the icon there in the launcher bar. So that's about it for today. That gives you kind of a basic overview of how the designer hooks things up and how you can go in by hand and change those. And more importantly, once you change them, how to get them reflected back in the GUI builder and in the execution environment. So we'll leave it there. Until next time, have fun with Smalltalk.